Live from Atlanta, Georgia, it's the Zach Ballinger Show, where we help you find your direction through passion and purpose. My name is Zach Ballinger. I'm your host. Thank you guys so much for joining us today. A couple of ways you can ask questions. We are streaming via live YouTube. You can ask those questions right into the comment box. Always before any show during the week, Zach at zachballinger.com, Zach with a K. You can ask those questions at any time. We're going to be having these career experts on all throughout 2021. These shows are about your career. No question is a stupid question. You can ask anything you would like pertaining to career development, networking, job interview, whatever it may be. And we've just had a really good response from these. We have a great guest here today. Dr. Ritter, thank you so much for joining the show today.
Pumped to be here. Thanks for having me.
So before we jump in and help some of these people, could I get a little brief background about what you do?
Yeah, so basically I work with people to help them find a career that they love. That can be where they're at now. So a lot of people think the way to find a career you love is to go find it. Well, a lot of times you have to look inside yourself and can actually curate it with where you're exactly at. But I also work with individuals that do want to go down that entrepreneurial route to create their own company, as well as individuals that just want to pivot industries and are trying to figure out how to represent their strengths and skills, maybe even discover them and how they can be applicable to a new industry itself. That's also led me going into organizations and running corporate wellness workshops on job satisfaction, on empowerment and accountability related to those areas, as well as value congruence and leadership development skill sets for senior leaders and above. I got into this, though, because I was in that place where I did not feel like I was in a career that I loved. I realized that I was very much reacting to my professional environment instead of being proactive. And what's interesting is a lot of people think that I think they are being proactive in their life. They look at the relationships that they formed, the jobs that they have, where they live even. And if you really take a hard look at things, you realize that most of the time you are reacting to opportunities that have been presented to you. So what I like to do is to empower others, to help them feel more accountable for their own professional path.
That's so awesome. So what was your turning point in your career where you said you were kind of stuck in a job you didn't like? What turned it around for you?
I was in a place where I thought my organization was supposed to give me meaning. And I think a lot of people are in this place. They become resentful towards their organization, towards their leaders, and towards the work because they think that it's supposed to give them something else. And really, the real story is meaning comes from within. So you can actually curate the work that you want to do. You can curate the relationships you want to have. You can curate the meaning that you perceive from your work on your own. But I forgot that. I didn't realize that when I was working as a healthcare executive. And so I was pretty much I was very resentful towards the work that I was doing. And I was pulling away from the relationships that I could have been creating. And I was missing out on work that could have led to greater career capital later down the line. And luckily, when I was walking to work one day, dreading the fact that I had a job that I could walk to work, because what a great situation, and dreading the fact that I worked for an organization that I didn't feel like was giving me meaning, I just looked up and I realized that so many other people that I was passing by seemed to be feeling the same way. And at that time, I was actually a side hustling coach in professional development in that space, and understood that we are the ones that are accountable for what environment we create for ourselves. And it just kind of like a truck hit me. Why am I doing this to myself? Why do I feel like that I am not the one responsible for my professional career and my professional happiness? And so at that point in time, I actually took a step back and did just a kind of a career capital audit. What are my strengths? What are my passions? What challenges do I want to face moving forwards? And with that information, was able then to go to my VP and start crafting my job to be more related to talent development, professional development, leadership development, employee engagement. Now, that pathway didn't work out due to being acquired by another organization, through centralizing all the projects that I was working on, and people that I was working with they ended up losing their jobs. But it gave me the information I needed to actually be more proactive within my career and take steps forward to lead me to where I am today, where I'm running a successful business. I have a ton of contract work. I built up a brand, and I'm actually enjoying every single second that I have to work.
Such an amazing story, and it's so true. I cite a Gallup poll in my latest book, Don't Be a Zombie, How to Find a Career You Love, with 153,000 American workers surveyed by Gallup, and 70% of Americans don't like their jobs. And so the reality of that you were having a walk that day and seeing others around you isn't just your perceptions, it's actually reality. And so I'm so glad that you commented on that, and thank you for sharing your story.
Yeah, they were zombies, to be honest.
Exactly. Thanks for the plug. So I want to jump into these questions that we had. We had a few come in, and the one question that you know I want to actually take. I don't do this a lot. In other words, I ask users questions, but I try to trim them down, if you will, because a lot of times you'll get backstories on questions that, if I read the whole question, I would lose the audience. But I think on this particular question, I think we need to spend some time on it because it's so relevant. Do you mind to have me read this, Ben, and we can kind of dissect it?
Yeah, go for it.
All right. Hi, Zach. Here's a question. How do I know if a job posting is real or is posted to meet the legal requirement and the position is already filled? I used to go on numerous job interviews, only to find out later that the position was filled days before the job was posted with an internal person who the boss knew or approached for the position, or filled by a family or friends. I have been told that very few companies will even consider anyone outside the company, and that the only reason they schedule interviews with external candidates is to legally show they have interviewed a certain number of external candidates, so it appears though they are giving everyone an equal chance, but clearly they are not. Can you walk us through this?
Well, first off, that I'm really sorry that's happened, and so just take a second and accept the fact that you dealt with some tough situations. Not all jobs that were hired by internal candidates. About 40% of jobs are found through referral. So understand that, like, there's an opportunity there. Then you have the percentage of positions that are hired just through external candidates from job boards. But then you also have recruiters. You have, like you said, internal candidates, what the question is about. But there's a lot of different sources that organizations use to hire. Now, you're more likely to get a job most of the time if you are a referral, and sometimes, potentially an internal candidate. But this might highlight an opportunity for networking, to build relationships, to then be one of those people that gets that warm introduction to an organization. But first, I just really, really want to hit home your mindset and frame of perspective on the job search needs to be coming from a place of positivity and excitement. Every time you have the opportunity to get a new job is an opportunity for growth. Like, there's very few times in our life where we have such an easy way to learn new experiences, to make new relationships, and to grow one area of our life. So let's try to keep that frame of perspective when we are looking for positions, because despite, having 1, 2, 3, 4 experiences where a job was posted mainly for an internal candidate, that is not the majority of job postings that are on the internet. And also, it may seem like the job posting was for an internal candidate, but it may have been that just an internal candidate was a stronger candidate for that role. But there's a lot of reasons why an organization wouldn't want to hire someone internally, and why they might hire someone internally after reviewing external candidates. So I'll stop there for a second. Zach, turn it over to you, see if you have anything to add, and then we can dive further into this.
Yeah, I think we're going to focus on this for a minute because, first of all, I think it's a good question because there's certain corporations that do this, where, let's just be honest, they'll post a job, but legal requirements in certain states, and I'm no HR lawyer, but I have talked to them, is that you do have to post this job for a certain number of days for external candidates. And so the corporation may have their mindset on somebody internally They may have a rock star candidate. Let's just pretend that it's a sales job. Let's say they want to transfer to that area. Well, it's a no-brainer. If somebody's been with your organization for 10 years, they've been a top performer, they want to move to that territory, the company legally has the requirement to post the job, so they have to do it. Now, we can debate whether that should be law, and that's for a totally different show, not on this show, but it happens a lot. And so that's the reality of the situation. But to say everything is filled by an internal candidate is just simply not true. Now, let's talk about why. Why would you fill a job with an internal candidate? Well, first, if somebody has a good performance, obviously the company knows them. So if they've been there 10 years, they performed at a real well level. Of course, you want to give your employees the opportunity for different jobs at first. So that kind of makes sense. But I think you hit on the networking side. I think that's where it's important. Go ahead. You were going to say something.
I was just going to say that every opportunity you have to interview for a job, despite if they already, let's say, like you said, stellar candidate, there is no question the company wants to hire this person no matter what. They're going through the motions, and there are some signs that you can tell during the interview that this is happening. We can talk about that too. Let's earmark that and discuss that. But this is an opportunity where you're in front of a hiring manager for an organization that you're interested in. You have literally that hour or so to wow them in a way to make you relevant, maybe not for that position, for a potentially other position, or potentially a recommendation to another organization. So I wouldn't discount any specific interview, even if there are signs that they're going to go with an internal candidate. And we'll talk about those. But like you said, there's a reason for wanting to hire an internal candidate. You know, they know the organization, they have the foundation, the relationships, potentially proven skill sets. But also, if you display certain things within that interview and interview in a way that highlights your experiences through stories, and also highlight your understanding of the organization during the interview, and represent that you have relationships that you've already connected with the people at that organization, then you do still have a chance, no matter how stellar a candidate is, to be in the spotlight, or at least to find another role within that organization itself too. And I know you said you wanted to talk about networking and relationships. I kind of hinted at it. We can evolve from there.
No, you hit the nail on the head. I think I've been in this candidate's shoes before. I went through 250 job interviews with over 50 companies before I got my very first opportunity in pharmaceutical sales, because it's a difficult industry to get into. But I was making some mistakes. I wasn't doing this advice that I talk about today. But you hit on a point. It's hiring managers. Think about their network. Who is it? It's other hiring managers. So if we build these relationships, and I have this happen in pharmaceutical sales all the time, I might have been the backup candidate. They might have had an internal candidate that's just sorry as that, but you did outstanding. That was very disappointing to me. Now I can react from that two ways. Like you said, you got to be positive. Positively, hey, although I'm disappointed, thank you for your feedback. Let's keep in touch. Let me make the effort every 3 to 4 months. Let me touch base with you just to make sure how everything's going in your organization. Negative, I've seen it happen a lot of times, Ben. People get really upset. Well, forget it. So they nasty email, whatever it might be. And you can go down that path, but that's going to burn a lot of bridges. So what do we do from there to transition these failed opportunities and actually eventually make them into positive opportunities is what I would say.
Yeah, I think often people tend to only build relationships with the hiring manager. So I'd say you could start there because you have a positive experience with them. You can follow up in a month or so with an article about the industry, or an article related to the position that they were hiring for, or weaknesses and opportunities that they highlighted through the interview, which you should have discovered through your questions, and build that relationship, curate it, strengthen it. But you could also say, even right after the interview, if they thought highly of you, and you know that they hired an internal candidate, which is, again, a lot of these are assumptions. So you need to explicitly know these types of things. You could ask them for a recommendation based on their connections on LinkedIn, or based on an article that you saw, or you can ask them, where do you think I could be a strong candidate? And you actually then can follow up with their recommendations, with their connections, or just follow up in general when they gave you some advice to show that you actually took their advice, and work on then building that relationship. But even more important, networking with people within the department you were interested in, and maybe even the person that ends up getting hired and transferring into that department. Because what you want to do is build an environment of relationships that relates to where you want to go, not just the next position, but the next 2 or 3 positions within organizations that are related to also where you want to go.
Yep, exactly. You're building your tribe. So you connect with the hiring manager. It's not just over there. Look and find out who's on his sales team. Pretty easy. You can reach out to somebody, say, hey, I'd love to pick your advice, establish that relationship from a professional level, offer them solutions too. I mean, networking is not just a one-way street. It's a two-way street. And so you can certainly build up those credentials. But I would say this happens a lot where, we can get frustrated, and we can certainly, there's a lot of competition out in the job marketplace, especially for different careers that are, may not be that many opportunities for these jobs in particular. But the key is like you said, is we have to learn what to do from that failed opportunity. How do we stand? Who do we network? What's our next steps? What's the engagement process? And I think that we get discouraged. And I know that was happening to me right out of college. When a sales manager would tell me something like that, I would just ignore them, be mad about it, and not even respond to their emails. And so I think a lot of times we can control the controllables is what I would say.
And whenever you get rejected for a job, if it isn't one of those no replies, you have the opportunity to continue that relationship, to add value. And I work with a lot of people that are also consultants on the side. I say, pitch yourself. So it's every time you have the ability to talk to someone and they have your attention and your focus, you have the ability to create a stronger brand. I think that's so important. I would like to quickly highlight maybe some warning signs that they are hiring an internal candidate. So a lot of times when an organization moves really quickly with the hiring process, like they want the interview tomorrow or within 2 days, and you can actually ask them, well, when are you thinking of hiring someone for this position? Like if there's a week timeline there or a 2-week timeline, you actually ask a question. Are there strong internal candidates for this position? You can also notice during an interview when they don't really seem to be paying a lot of attention, or they seem to just kind of be checking the boxes. You can also ask that question, just in terms of who's applying for this role, who's being considered for this role. And if you do have a feeling that they already have someone selected for this role, that's when your line of questioning can actually relate to other areas within the organization, other opportunities that may be available. So you're not just wasting your time, like ignoring the elephant in the room, so to speak.
Yeah, and I don't even think it's a waste of time if you're willing to engage them through the proper dialogue. It gives you an hour to build that foundation. How many people out there would just love an hour to be able to network with a hiring manager who later on might hire them? Let me tell you a quick story. Sorry, I'm excited about this one. So when I was interviewing pharmaceutical sales, I actually got turned down by this company the first time. And then I networked with a hiring manager. He thought very fondly of me. So the second time I go in for the interview, he's got another open position. I sat down in front of him. He calls me with a real tough conversation and said, hey, here's what I was up against. Internal candidate, 27 years experience, solid track record, knows the products and training. If it wasn't that situation, you would have been hired. And so I could have, again, took this very negatively and like, well, you put me through all that. This is the second time. I didn't. I kept the relationship. Guess what? I got the job the third time. It was an opening. So never giving up, continue to network. And that's the kind of the power behind it. Go ahead.
I think, you're just hitting it home how important it is to keep a positive mindset and to realize that the relationships that you're building are important. I also think like level setting expectations here. Like when I start working with clients and they think they can get a job within a week or a month, I said, hold on a second. Like if you start now, 3 to 6 months, like let's just set that expectation. Let's also set the expectation that even if your resume and LinkedIn profile and cover letter are on point, let's also say you only hear back from 10% of the applications that you submit for initial screenings. And then based on those screenings, maybe 30 to 50% of like next rounds, maybe if you're lucky. So it's kind of like, and people hear these statistics and you may disagree with them, but it's like, let's put it into perspective how many interviews and how many jobs you might have to actually be in front of as a candidate to get that job.
Absolutely. You know, I was talking to a hiring manager the last show, and he had been with MIT and been with all these corporations, and he made the hiring decisions. And he said he looked at a resume for about 15 seconds.
Yeah.
And in North America, there's been other studies showing that most hiring managers look at a resume 6 seconds. So you really have to, first of all, a resume without a relationship is usually dead. So that's where we talk about this connection opportunity. Ben, could you walk us through how important LinkedIn is for professionals?
LinkedIn is basically your branding page. It is what most hiring managers will take a look at before giving you a call or after that initial interview. It is a free landing page that you could use to represent who you are, what you care about, and your personality. So often I see candidates that just have no activity and no information on their pages. No header, no header image, no skills put in, no recommendations, and no activity for the past 2-3 years for not even liking somebody's post. This, if you are on the job market right now, your LinkedIn profile is basically the Facebook of today, right? Where a lot of times people said that hiring managers will look at your Facebook and see what your personality is. Now they go look at your LinkedIn profile. They won't look at your Facebook probably until you're in the final interview. Like, it is so critical that you show that you're engaged and that you highlight your professional capabilities, skill sets, and your personal personality as well.
Awesome. You know, I agree. I think LinkedIn is just, and more and more jobs are being posted there every day. So really, it's become more of a job search platform too. What else? You know, the question that comes in is how do you work with clients on finding their passion in life? So let's say that they're stuck in a career that they don't like. What are some initial moves that they should begin with? And they're asking specifically for tangible steps. So what can I do today? What can I do this month?
Yeah, and just to also go back to LinkedIn for one moment, it is an opportunity for you to build a relationship with someone before asking them for something. A lot of times when you're looking for a career, you're asking for a job, you're asking for an introduction. LinkedIn allows you to give value prior to that, tagging an organization in a post, tagging a person in a post, sharing a specific post with them, liking something that they have, sharing something that they've done, commenting on something that they're commenting on. So think about that in terms of how to build a relationship. You need to give value before asking to take value. So now on this question in terms of how do you actually figure out a career that you can love? Well, if you're very early on in your career, explore and do stuff. Get a taste of everything that you can, because a lot of times we box ourselves in terms of what we think is possible for us. And so we limit our ability to develop a certain, our strengths, our skills, our interests, our relationships. So if you're younger in your career, realize that you're just building towards your career and that you're just learning important skills no matter what organization or what job you're in to be able to ensure that you have the career that you want later on in life. Now, you want to be intentional and curate towards at least something you're interested in, or at least something I'd say even that makes you uncomfortable. So you're expanding your horizons, you're opening up your mind, you're learning skill sets that maybe you wouldn't have learned before. But if you're later on in your career, you have a lot of information to review. So you can look at every single one of your jobs and you can evaluate them for what you really enjoyed, what you didn't enjoy. You can look at all those jobs and evaluate who you liked working with, who you didn't like working with. You can evaluate all of them and see what really interested you, what impact you felt when you at those positions themselves that you connected with. And you can build a list of your strengths, your passions, types of people that you enjoyed connecting with, and start looking for similarities and themes to really highlight what you feel connected to, what drives you, what fills you up, and then start looking for future things that maybe you haven't experienced yet that you are interested in. And then that whole picture should lead you forward in terms of, okay, where should I be investing my time career-wise?
Awesome. Thank you so much for sharing. Where can people find you? You have a social media sites or links or any websites that people can get in touch with you?
Yeah, I'm active on pretty much all of them, but the one I'm most active on is LinkedIn. So find Dr. Benjamin Ritter on LinkedIn and connect with me. Leave a little note that you heard me on this show. and I'll be sure to connect and we can have a conversation. But also, if you go to liveforyourselfconsulting.com, I have a free ebook on guiding you towards a career that you can love.
We'll make sure to link to all that. Dr. Ritter, this has been such a pleasure. I know you're really busy. We appreciate you giving back to your time and helping people out there who certainly have a tough time with the coronavirus and everything going on. So we do really appreciate your time coming on this virtual format and sharing such great advice. Thank you so much.
Happy to be here. Thanks again for having me.
Have a great day. Take care.